Shalom from Jerusalem. This is Israel at War, an update on TV7 News Israel. I'm Amir Oren, sitting in for the traveling Jonathan Hessen. And this is day 651 of the war, which started on October the 7th, 2023, with the horrific attack and massacre by Hamas on Israel's Negev, southern communities. There are already still 50 Israeli hostages held in Hamas captivity. 20 of them are alive, 30 dead. And apparently negotiations are still being held regarding a possible deal releasing them against Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails and including an Israeli Defense Forces withdrawal from the points taken up to now within the Gaza Strip. However, the major story of the day is on the other side of the Israeli border, and that is in the north, in Syria, where there have been clashes between forces loyal, at least nominally, to the new regime in Damascus and the Druze community in the Sueda province, and where Israeli Druze brethren of the Syrian Druze have broken into Syria in order to help the local Druze. And we are very fortunate to have with us three experts who are ideally suited to the topic of the day. Two of them are especially experts regarding what is happening in the north, in Syria and Lebanon. And one is an air power expert. And apparently, up to now, the major Israeli effort has been using the Air Force, both in the Sueda province, as well as against regime targets in the capital, Damascus. So welcome, Sarit Zehavi, the founder and director of the Alma Research Center in the Galilee and a former lieutenant colonel in Israeli intelligence, in the Directorate of Military Intelligence, specializing in the Northern Command. Sarit, welcome. Major General Gershon Cohen, who, among other duties in your illustrious career, headed an Army Corps and the 36th Armored Division, which during your time was in charge of the Golan Heights and of operational planning in the northern sector. General Cohen, welcome.
Good to be with you.
Thank you. And Brigadier General in the Reserves, Relik Shafir, in the Air Force, of course, a combat fighter pilot, flying all sorts of jets, including F-16 to Baghdad and back, fortunately, and heading one of the major Air Force bases, Tel Nov. Relik Shafir, General Shafir, welcome.
Thank you.
So, Colonel Zehavi, Sarit, how would you assess the state of play right now? And let's concentrate right now on the triangle, Israel, the Julani or Shara regime, and the Druze community in Sueda, even though, of course, there are other inputs, American, Turkish, and perhaps others.
Look, we thought it will be quiet, but reports show that even if there is quiet, it is very temporary. We still have to confirm whether the riots between the Bedouins and the Druze were renewed during this morning. But I want to talk about the broader picture, as you mentioned. And I think that Israel should make a close analysis to what just happened and to build a strategy to the near future, because it is clear to all of us that what happened is not a singular event. It will happen again. We had 1,000 soldiers of al-Julani, of Ahmed Ashara, the president of Syria today, that were sent to those Druze area and participated in the massacres and the raids against the Druze. And the Druze in Israel blocked the main roads in the north, breached the fence and enter. Israel also bombed the forces that were attacking the Druze in Sueda, al-Julani's forces, but also bombed the defense ministry in Damascus. And I think that it's really, really important to make sure that we are not getting involved in another active front in Syria, but at the same time, we do defend our interests regarding the Druze minority in Syria and regarding the fact that we don't want to grow another jihadi monster just on the other side of the border that will replace the other monster that we just won against, which was the Shiite Muslim monster.
The Assad regime.
I think that's the main route that we should go in, and we should drill down to a strategy here with the Americans to make sure that nobody is forgetting what just happened here in the past few days.
General Cohen, more than 40 years ago, you fought in Lebanon as a young armor officer, and at that time, Israel first encountered the problem of the links between the Druze in Israel, including in the Golan Heights, where in 1981, the inhabitants who were Syrian until 1967 and were forced to accept Israeli citizenship, and your units, as well as others, encountered the Druze in the Shuf Mountains and elsewhere in Lebanon, where Israel's allies were the Maronites, the Lebanese forces. But the Lebanese forces, of course, acted against the Druze, and there were massacres already at that time, and therefore Israeli Druze officers and soldiers were independently trying to help their brethren, even against orders. Are we now facing a similar situation?
Yes, absolutely. We are facing a kind of tension in every Israeli Druze between his loyalty to the Israeli state, to the Israeli laws, etc., and even to the IDF, and their deep commitment to their families. And they are absolutely feeling committed to that. And I was witness just yesterday to a meeting between Druze from Syria, from Khadar, with their families in Majd al-Shams, Mas'ad villages in the Israeli Golan, families that didn't meet each other more than 50 years, and the break of the fence created the atmosphere similar to the break of Berlin Wall, that something good and extraordinary is taking place. It means that in Israel, we must really analyze what's going on. It is not just a way to push the Israeli government to decide to do something in another sovereign state in Syria and to act there. It is a commitment that demanded the prime minister to do something not only from moral obligation and considerations there, because a massacre must be stopped, but it is something that threatening the equilibrium in Israel and the alliances between IDF and all other Druze that serving excellently in the IDF, and the whole relationship in daily life in Israel between the Druze minorities that are not more than 150,000 civilians, citizens, and their power is really, really great in order to push Prime Minister of Israel to find no way but to be involved in Syria. And this is a very important decision.
General Shafir, the declared Israeli policy regarding Syria right now, and of course, this is in addition to secret channels in which, as reported, there have been talks regarding some security arrangements, maybe even normalizing relations later. But the declared policy is twofold. First of all, to demilitarize the area south of Damascus, which is only an hour's drive from the Israeli border on the Golan Heights, especially in the provinces of Dara and Sueda, and to protect the Druze community, which is what we have talked about up to now. Now, the Israeli ground forces are quite overextended. They are being in the Gaza Strip, have been now for almost 2 years. They have other missions in Judea and Samaria. They have to train. And therefore, it seems that the most convenient way for Israel to enforce this policy is from the air. And there have been strikes in Damascus as well as in Sueda. But can it be sustainable, and is it effective enough, or will Israel have to use boots on the ground?
Well, let me take us all back to 1919 when Syria was actually created at the Sykes-Picot Agreement between the French and the British. Syria is not really a state on its own merit, but it's a conglomerate of several tribes and religious communities. And as the Turks have taken over the northeastern part of Turkey, subduing any elements of the PKK Kurdish group and bringing them under control, Israel is trying to do the same on this front south of Damascus, because al-Julani is not really able to control Syria. It has no military forces, as the Syrian military actually disbanded and was ineffective to begin with. And so he's using some Bedouin or some other terror groups to try and strong arm those who are not subdued yet. And the Druze community refused to give up its arms because it was afraid that they might be attacked by those Bedouins or even ISIS. So Israel has a double-fold interest. One of them is to protect the Druze, who are the brethren of the Druze serving in Israel and being part and parcel of Israel. And the other one is strategic, to make sure that this part is not used by ISIS or Iran proxies to ponder the Israeli Golan Height border. So these interests can be enforced by the Air Force, because the Air Force rendered the Syrian Air Force itself and the Syrian army incapacitated them in the past few months. So it's really not a great deal to, I would say, survey what is happening around the Druze community and attack any convoys that are headed that way. And I think the Druze community should stand up for its own in the in the Sueda area. I hope they don't need their Israeli side brethrens. And so Israel's interest is not to go into Syria itself, but to enforce its interests through air power. And it's probably quite doable as it is in Lebanon up to date. So the same, I would say, type of enforcement that is targeting Lebanon, same goes for the southern part of Syria. So these are mutual interests, not to mention the Jordanians, who have an interest to make sure that none of the terror groups are on their border either. So I think it can be stabilized as far as Israel is concerned. As far as Syria is concerned, I don't think it's going to be stable for long, and we don't really know where it's going.
Thank you very much, General Shafir. It all sounds very logical, but if you want to be better liked in Washington, may I suggest that instead of saying incapacitated, you say obliterated, and then you may get an invitation to the White House.
I'll decline at this stage.
Okay. Colonel Zehavi, right now you're an academic observer or a think tanker, but if one had not only to analyze, but also to recommend a certain option or a mixture of more than one. Now, Israel is facing a dilemma. Does it want a strong central government in Damascus, which may turn hostile, rebuild the armed forces, becomes a threat again? And if it does that, it may impose its authority on various jihadi groups, terrorist militias, whatnot. But the other option, of course, is that it will be a no man's land and Israel will be absorbed in skirmishes there. So what's your recommendation?
Look, I want to sharpen that for a moment. We don't know whether al-Jolani wants to build a Syria under the Saudi model of an Islamic state, a traditional Islamic state, but with very good connections with the West based on Western weapons as well. Or is it just stage one before getting to stage two, which is actually building an ISIS state, which is far more dangerous? We don't know at the same time whether Ahmed al-Shara can actually control his militias that just incorporated into the Syrian army. And those are jihadists that truly believe in jihadi ideology, that truly believe that minorities should be killed. How much control does he have upon them and for how long he is going to last? We don't know all of that. I think that the main lesson that we have learned from October 7th is that we cannot enter to our enemies or neighbors' minds, and we need to make sure that they don't have capabilities. In this respect, I agree with my colleague here. The IDF can and should focus on eliminating capabilities, making sure that convoys are not getting into Sweda, that's one thing, but also at the same time, making sure that dangerous weapons are not falling in the hands of this new Syrian government, whether it is with by diplomacy, working with the Americans around that, and even creating some kind of security arrangement between Israel and Syria, and whether it's by military ways attacking any threat that is identified on the other side of the border. It is a huge dilemma of how to walk between the drops, but I believe it's possible. I believe we can do it.
General Cohen, as a former commander of the National Defense College, had you been in that position now, you probably would have tasked one of your students or a team to write a short executive summary of the problem and suggest the priority assigned to this particular one among all other problems facing Israel right now, because one has to prioritize. There are limited assets, there is limited attention. So is it really that important an issue relative to the others facing Israel?
Actually, the situation among all the fronts, 7 fronts within which Israel involved, it is quite chaotic in a way that the priority changing from every day. What happened on last Wednesday, is that Chief of Staff realized the risk to lose control in the Syrian front, and he just removed took 35 paratrooper brigade from Gaza Strip to send it to the Syrian front. And the question of priority could really be decided today, and tomorrow it is a new day. What really I can say, and I wrote a paper about that there are a lot of versions of actions before coming to boots on the ground in the Jabal Druze, the mountain of the Druze in Sweden. For example, to send troops like the Green Berets undercover to equip and to train the Druze. They really have around 100,000 equipped men to defend themselves, but they are not really trained. From a population of 700,000, they really succeeded to defend themselves with a very strong organization. We can call that semi-military organization, and Israel can help them, and not to do that with direct intervention and put on the ground what is called with Israeli flags on Jabal Druze. And I think it is necessary to begin. It was necessary to begin that months before.
General Shafir, it's a very strange situation in which the Middle East is now arrayed with Israel in the middle of this problem. Some of the enemies Israel is facing have missiles of various sorts, but they don't have air forces. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, even Iran. On the other hand, the Druze, whom we are helping, as basically all of you are in favor of, have an air force, your air force, the Israeli air force, which is at their beck and call. Is that a viable option? They don't have liaison officers on the ground to coordinate with the Israeli Air Force. You don't have to deconflict with them because they don't have fighters of their own. But how do you go about such a unique mission?
Well, let's go back a little. There are two strong forces involved in Syria, the Turks in the north and ourselves in the southwest. And there is a contingency, American contingency force within Syria itself. The chaos that is happening in Syria now and in the foreseeable future forces Israel and Turkey maybe to share an idea of how to subdue the area. Turkey, let's say in the north, and Israel in the south, such that paramilitary forces or Bedouins or ISIS would not destabilize Syria even more. So the choice that was true to yesterday, up to yesterday, was al-Julani, but apparently he's not really able to wield his power and control Syria, at least not close to our border. And so the obvious result is that we should look for someone or some power that can take control of Syria. And this can only be done between Israel and Turkey with U.S. support. And I would even add the Jordanians as interested parties. So we can't let that area be controlled by whoever has the upper hand at a particular moment. At this time, our only option in the short term is to help the Druze maybe train them a little or via proxies, have them trained, relay intelligence and surveillance from the ground to UAVs or fighters in the air to make sure that they are in a controlled space around the Sweda area. By the way, I have a personal interest in that area because my great-grandfather settled there in 1896, came from Romania. There was a Jewish contingency agricultural area with about 30 families very close to the Jebel Druze. And the Turks kicked them out by 1901. So taking that aside, as to your answer, yes, we can do it from the air, making sure that the Druze have the ability to relay information and surveillance about what's happening in their area and making sure they train their own forces since they're pretty strong in that area.
So we are soon going to see you leading the settlement movement back in Sweda from the air this time.
No, my great-grandfather moved to a place called Yavneel, where he was the chief of the village in 1902.
Okay, so we are relieved at least this diversion is not going to occupy us. For the time being, thank you, all three of you, Sarit Zehavi, Gershon Cohen, Relik Shafir. This has been an update, Israel at War, from TV7 News Israel in Jerusalem. For the time being, until next week, thank you and shalom from Jerusalem.
My name is Eran Lerman. I used to be Deputy National Security Advisor to the Government of Israel, currently Vice President of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, a think tank, and the editor of the Jerusalem Strategic Tribune. For the last few years, I've been a regular panelist for TV7, a fantastic opportunity to bring deep and analytical perspectives to the debate over regional affairs, Israeli affairs, international affairs, in the company of some of the best minds in Israel.